This is going to be the first part of a series. Here I shall describe the first movie as well as the world building. The second video will cover my plan for the sequels. And the third will be fan casting. Because that's why we're here.
It's me, Emma Teal.
Greetings. I'm Emmett. I believe it was 2012 when my family got our first Wii.
Where have you been?
The way of the future.
With that Wii came the default game of Super Mario Brothers, except I can't just say it, I have to say it right.
No Super Mario Brothers, wee-hee! Wee!
It's safe to say that I was a little bit obsessed. We had both that game and Mario Kart, and I played them both to completion. I would not give up. I think it took me years, but I did get every medal. I won every race, and then something happened with our Wii, and all of my progress erased, or actually we got the new Wii U, but then in the process, we ended up putting our old Wii out of function. So while there's no official record of this achievement, I did it. And I am proud. Somewhere in there, I also dressed up as Mario for Halloween, which explains this. My grandmother sewed me up these little overalls, so I never felt like throwing them out because it's a nice memory. So when I was getting ready to do this video, I saw them hanging in my closet and was like, you know what? This is a good reason as any to dust the old costume off and dress up as Mario. Except I'm gonna take this hat off now because it's really cutting into my forehead. So in the years of my obsession, my brain started working, the gears started turning, and I started to come up with a plot for not only a Mario movie, but a Mario trilogy. I even typed up an outline for all of my ideas so that I could share them with the world. The reception wasn't quite as I hoped. I don't think I was really to a point where I knew how to put all of my ideas down on paper. And so I pretty much just forgot about it. I moved on because I would rather spend time developing ideas that I could actually do something with. What were the odds of me actually getting to make a Mario movie? None. What are the odds of someone making a Mario movie? Pretty good. It's a popular IP, so surely it would happen eventually, right? Then, a little more recently, I found out that a Mario movie was in the works. From Illumination, and a little bit of my soul died that day. Fast forward a few more years, and you have that casting announcement, which was what everybody was talking about like a month ago or two. I am a little late. I assume people are still going to be talking about Mario as time goes on, and this is just when I had the time to put my 2 cents in there. Because here's the thing, I have not looked at that old Mario outline for a long time. I know what I wanted to do, like I still have those ideas kicking around in my head, but I'm not sure how much of them are really true to what I put on paper back when I was a kid. I had lost the original paper, but my mom's computer still had the file, so I printed it off, but as I was doing so, I tried to avoid looking at the page because I wanted to read it fresh. That's right, you were going to experience, unedited, my words from when I was like 14, maybe. 14 doesn't really sound as young as I feel that it was, but 20 doesn't feel as young as it sounds. So without further ado, let's get into it. Or at least that was the plan. Turns out I didn't really have very many developed thoughts back when I was 14, and thus I present you a voiceover, so that I may explain things just a little bit better. So Mario and Luigi are hiding out in their rundown plumbing business when they get a letter from Princess Peach. The dialogue implies some kind of dark past that caused a rift between Mario and the royal line. Originally, I was gonna stick to the birthday party idea and have there be a king character, but then I realized I had next to nothing for the king to do, and I couldn't really think of a reason why Peach would just now reach out to make amends. What changed her heart? Well, now I'm thinking there is no king.
Their parents are dead.
Maybe the king still had a grudge over the mysterious past that he wouldn't let go of, and now with her newfound power, Peach can finally take strides to fix those mistakes. Mario is excited to reunite with Peach, but during the ceremony, the Koopas attack with their airships and take her away. The Toads left alone can't really do anything, let alone start a war. They don't even know where Peach is being held, so Mario and Luigi take it upon themselves to rescue her, accompanied by a couple of Toad officers serving as, an escort, I guess? There should be a specific term for that. They're the people they have to report to. I guess Mario has to be reined in.
Sure, he was a loose cannon, but he always got the job done.
I'm so worried that Illumination is just gonna turn the Toads into minions. Like, you can make them goofy and quirky, they'd most likely be comic relief any way you slice it. Don't. Basically, it's a big, grand adventure where you see many different places and do many different things. The main mechanic that spurs it on is that since Bowser has taken Peach captive, Mario needs to infiltrate the Koopaline smuggling operation. I just have to assume that I'm not alone in this, because when I look at these games, what I see is Mario going along this trail of Koopas, busting open boxes and getting their goods. I know I talk about this a little further on, but this is my headcanon. It's a smuggling ring that Mario has to dismantle to work his way up and try to find, like, the final location. Like, where is their hideout? You find out that information by starting small, finding the local operation in the first kingdom, finding the boss there, interrogate him, he tells you where to go next. That leads you from kingdom to kingdom in a grand travel sequence. Among the trade routes, they also find POWs, which are landmine-like boxes that emit a powerful shockwave. They also find enslaved Yoshis and set them free. Is that too dark? Yes, that's right. I want Mario to feature Yoshi slavery. I mean, I'm trying to set Bowser up as a big boss villain, so, you know, what do you expect? And honestly, it's not that far-fetched for me. Like, you kind of need a subplot to help ground it, so that it's not just repetitive of watching Mario go around beating up turtles. So having the Yoshi slavery, to me, adds an element of drama and suspense that elevates the Koopaline's villainy, as well as actually giving you something to do, so that it's not just the save the princess. I also think it could show Mario's character that he's not just obsessed with his mission, he's willing to help people he meets along the way, even if that means taking detours. I don't know if there would be more than just the Yoshis. There probably would be, like maybe have each section have different people that he helps, and then they could all come together in a big fight at the end, maybe? I mean, that type of thing usually works well. Everyone you meet coming back to beat up the bad guy. Okay, so I want to explain first a couple things about what I don't say in this script. I had a lot of ideas as a kid that were more like abstract and far-fetched and undefined. Like, I knew the vibe that I was going for, but I didn't know how to take that and really make it work. And so as I grow up, sometimes my ideas mature and come into fruition more, and then sometimes I'll just see other things that I'm like, oh hey, that reminds me of what I wanted to do. And that's happened with Mario. One of the main examples is when Shad from Shadiversity started talking about his book, Shadow of the Conqueror, and he did a video talking about the world building and his thought process. And he just said the words, he wanted a world that was endless sky, where the continents are just floating landmasses suspended in air. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's what I want from Mario. The whole time, even as a kid writing Mario, I was imagining I want this to be like a big fantasy epic that just has a serious tone all across the board and has crazy world building and just does stuff. I remember at one point when I was developing these ideas, I went as far as to say I basically just wanted Mario to have the tone, the pacing, the sensibilities of 9, the PG-13 moody, animated, very grim animated movie, 9. I wouldn't necessarily want to go that far with it nowadays, but that tells you the type of atmosphere I was wanting originally. So that's really how I imagined the Mario world feeling, because I think I got it from the idea that on the menu, when you choose what world you want to go into, it's like these little, it basically looks like cupcake landmasses that are floating around in a circle. My brain saw the little floating cupcakes and thought, what if those were just floating landmasses? I didn't put it into the script or the outline because, again, it was more abstract. Like, I knew kind of that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to put it into words because I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know you could actually do that, and then Shad makes it possible. But of course, I wouldn't deem it necessary to go into as many details about explaining how it all works, because it's still Mario. Like, I feel like you need to have kind of an awareness of the property. If it's just a fun movie for kids, even if it does take itself seriously, I do think that there is more room for just having fun and being creative and not having to explain the world so much. But there's also levels, like when you're jumping across clouds, or there's like floating rocks that you're jumping across, or I know there's one where like you have to swim through these giant floating bubbles of water. So in my mind, I'm just taking those ideas that are set up that way just for the sake of the gameplay, jumping across different things, and imagining what would that actually look like in a movie. So it's like floating land masses suspended in endless air, and you could even have oceans that are just bodies of water floating on the wind, floating through your land masses. And so that, like, to get from one world to the other world, you could have different modes of transportation. It's like if they have to launch themselves out of cannons, or they have to get like the helicopter power-ups or whatever, or ride these floating oceans. Just go nuts with it. That's what I want. As far as the character development for Mario goes, I did get some comments about that. So my brother Wyatt was also a fan of these Mario games. We had a lot of fun playing them together. He was all on board just hearing about my crazy world-building ideas. When I showed it to my brother Tucker, who is not a Mario fan, he kind of approached it from the idea of like, are you gonna make me care? And I don't think I made him care, because he made a comment about like, well, there's not really, like, you didn't detail any character development or whatever. Granted, that's a good point. You need to develop your characters. You need to go into it thinking, how do I make new people care about this? But honestly, I've always been good at, like, in the moment character development. In that sense, when I write things, I am sort of a discovery writer. Like, I'm not full-blown discovery writer, because I don't think that's necessarily good for actual results. But I do like to kind of figure out people's exact personalities along the way. And I've always seen Mario sort of like how I now see Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack was another thing that I didn't really know it as a kid, but watching it later on, I was like, this is what I want Mario to be. He's just a steadfast, likable guy that has a very simple mission, and he just encounters a lot of crap along the way that just makes you like him, because like each episode, he gets beat up and has to fight his way out. It's very simple character development, but it works because you just root for this guy because he's such a good, humble hero.
I feel you will be happier on the path of righteousness.
No way! They're children! Where are you going?
To free your daughter and the rest of the children from Aku's evil grasp.
Long live the glory of Aku!
You are very troubled. And very confused. Aku is the evil one, not me. I have met machines that are programmed with such hate and lies, but never a human.
Deceiver! Worm! Scum!
Now you're just repeating yourself.
That's the type of thing I wanted from Mario. I've heard other people describe it like, I think, was it Brian Seeker, when he was doing his fan casting video and laying out the character development, he was treating it more like an origin story where this is the beginning. In my mind, for some reason, I always have thought of Mario as being more, I guess, more like John Wick. Like, not actually like John Wick, but that type of setup where it's a hero who has a past and then now he's getting back in action. I wanted Mario to already kind of have a name.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
So that would kind of set up a mystery to be like, okay, what did happen in the past? Which would be explained as the trilogy goes on. So giving Mario a troubled past not only means that he's rescuing Peach because he loves her, but it also is a sort of redemption story. Like, if he had messed up, this is his time to prove himself. And I'm very curious to see how this will come across to, like, other fans, if any of this makes sense, because now I've sat with these ideas for so long that this is just how it is in my head. It's hard for me to separate the games from my interpretation of the games. Like, seeing Mario, he's going around beating up Koopas, bursting open boxes, and finding plants and gold and items. How is that not a black market trade route? Also, I don't want the power-ups to just be some goofy little superpower. Let's think about this realistically. When Mario freezes people, he's turning them to ice and then busting them into little bits because they're so frozen and brittle, it's easy to snap them apart. That's not me getting dark. That is Mario getting dark. He's just afraid to admit it. A movie needs to own concepts like this. I don't care if it's a kid's movie. Well, maybe I do. I don't know. You don't have to go full-blown BioShock, but I would like you to. Like, if you're holding a fireball in your hand, that's gonna burn. That's gonna burn you down to the bone. Get creative. Get detailed. Don't be afraid to take some risks. Like, it's a smuggling operation, right? It's like this fantasy black market smuggling. That's the way my brain was working, so then when I see Mario open up a box and find like a Yoshi egg, then I take that and interpret it as trafficking. I don't know if that's too dark or not. Too dark for Mario? Maybe. Too dark for the type of things I come up with nowadays? No. You could work with it. There's ways of making kids' movies a little edgier without actually delving into any, like, adult topics. Random question. Are the Yoshis animals or people, canonically? You ride them around, and they eat Koopas, who are supposed to be people, or at least orc-like people, but they are treated as characters who can potentially drive cars. I'm starting to think I don't understand this world enough. Maybe I'm not the best person to be writing a Mario movie. We'll just have to wait and see what horrors await in the future. Another random thought. You could pull a Dobby and give the Yoshis boots. This could enhance the characterization by giving the design an actual meaning, while also providing an example of how they should be characterized. Because if you treat them sort of like Dobby, he's a person, he's a character, but he's not the most high-functioning of characters.
Ooga! Yoshi Boogie! Yoshi's running away!
Hey, what's the big idea, Wizard Wise Guy, of scaring everybody like that?
Yoshi, big fraidy cat! Run away from Princess and Mario friends when they need him!
Master has presented Dobby with clothes. Dobby is free.
I don't know exactly what to think of the idea that Mario is just taking drugs all the time. I mean, that's what it is. He eats a plant and gets special powers. You could make it the fantasy version, like potions in fantasy worlds are technically just kind of drugs, like magical plants that give you magical abilities. Drugs. And a very important part of my vision was the presentation of the world and the character design. This is another reason why Illumination just isn't going to cut it. I want the Koopas to actually look like big, scary, realistically textured turtle people. You don't need to make them dinosaurs. You don't need to lean into the people aspect of turtle people. Just make them fantasy creatures that look like actual turtles. At the top of one mountain, they see an airship about to take off and they jump on. They have a brief air battle and either fly the ship to the next world, again thinking endless sky, continent over here, continent over there, fly the ship over, or it crashes and they have to walk. The last world is a mountain, so I'm just skipping over the... Okay, I thought I had more about like the journey, But apparently no, I'm just skipping straight to the last world. If I can, I'd like to set the stage a little more. So earlier during the journey, there would be a haunted house scene. Maybe not a house, but a land where you encounter the ghosts. This is when it would introduce the witch. I don't know if there is lore about what the boos actually are or how they came to be, but what I'm thinking is that the witch is summoning spirits. Or she's just associated with them because they're all into the same kind of spookiness. That would be another side mission like the YOSHI slaves, where Mario ends up fighting some ghosts and ticking off the witch. Maybe she was trying to resurrect them to lay waste onto a certain world, but since he stops her, she is now scorned and flees to Bowser's castle to lend him aid. So at the end, when you get to Bowser's big castle, I think I was imagining that as basically, what was that movie called? I about said Mortal Kombat. It wasn't Mortal Kombat. Mortal Engines? The movie where all the cities moved. It's a little silly, but it's a cool enough idea that I think you could do something more with. Basically, my idea was that Bowser's castle not only is located on the super dangerous lava world, but it's also constantly moving. Granted slowly, but it's still moving, so it's hard to nail down the location. In that level of the game, I think there's a lot of like working through gears. In the game, it's just you're jumping around on gears. You need obstacles, so you're climbing on gears. In my head, I was thinking that you could actually make that like a mechanism that controls the castle, that it's like a constantly shifting and moving castle, and Mario just goes into the inner workings to kind of find a shortcut through it. Now that they've found the fort, the Toads want to wait for reinforcements, but Mario doesn't, so he and Luigi go in without them. Gotta be that lonesome hero sort of thing. After working their way through the hardest booby traps, they finally arrive at Bowser's lair. That's one thing that I keep going back and forth on, like how exactly should Bowser be portrayed. Back then, I think I basically just turned him into the Dark Lord in his castle. That doesn't really do that much. Thinking about it more realistically, you would want him to be more of an actual character. I'll touch more on that because at the end of this video, I will delve into casting ideas. And I'll probably do more of like a how should the character be really presented sort of thing. They see what looks like Peach locked in a birdcage hanging above Bowser. They also see lots of smashers hanging from the ceiling and chains to release them on the walls. So back then I was thinking that to make it more serious, I had to make the world building more understated, such as in the game you see these big metal clompers that have faces on them and will smash down when they see somebody. And I took that and just thought, okay, well, those are just like metal anvils hanging from the ceiling that somebody up on high knows what Mario is doing and so pulls chains to release them onto Mario. Because I thought, a like sentient metal stomper, how is that gonna work? Or like you have bullets with faces and arms that chase after people. Or plants with teeth. But now, I don't want to dumb things down, I need to go all for it. So Maya and the Three is a Netflix show that came out recently, and quite often, when that show would get into the world building and the action, I would end up thinking, this is how Mario needs to be done. Because in that show, there is a part where I think he's the god of earthquakes, who is just like a big metal, angry, he's voiced by Danny Trejo, so he has that like gruff energy. There is a point where this like stone god rips off his own head, lights it on fire, and throws it at people, so you have a scene with people running away with this flaming, sentient metal ball chomping after them, and as soon as I see that, I'm like, you can make it work. You don't have to be afraid of the weirder things in Mario's world. Commit. Embrace it. You can make these things really cool if you know what you're doing. So yeah, a lot of this is just sort of recreating the finale of the game. Because, again, I wanted to stay true to the game, but there's a difference between staying true and then just having to follow it beat for beat. There are certain elements of this that I still want to keep in there because of how things turn out. They see what looks like Peach locked in a birdcage hanging above Bowser. They also see lots of smashers hanging from the ceiling and chains to release them on the wall. They battle Bowser, who viciously attacks them with fire and claw. Luigi decides to distract Bowser while Mario rescues Peach. He lowers the cage but finds that it is a witch disguised as Peach. The witch bursts out from the cage and attacks Mario. Now Mario is lying on the floor, out of health, with Bowser and the witch ganging up on him. Luigi sees the chains to release the Smashers and has an idea. He tosses Mario a power-up mushroom and goes for the chains. All at once, Luigi releases the Smashers that fall onto Bowser and the witch. The floor begins to crumble when all the Smashers smash down on it. I don't know why you'd make a room with Smashers and not make the floor able to handle all of the Smashers smashing. Could be a problem. I don't know. Bowser starts to fall through the floor. Mario reaches for the mushroom, but the witch hits it with a bolt of magic that enlarges it and sending it flying towards the falling Bowser. For a moment, they all think Bowser is dead because he fell into the lava. But then they see a giant hand grab the ledge where he fell from. Big Bowser hopped up on a supercharged power mushroom, bursts through the floor, and possibly crushes the witch like in the game. He was the size of a large troll to Mario, so imagining like 8 or 10 feet. But now he's all hopped up, so maybe 40, 50 feet. Mario and Luigi run through the crumbling castle, trying to avoid debris, Koopas, lava, and of course the massive, very angry Bowser. While all that was going on, the Toad reinforcements had arrived and were having a battle with the Koopa troops. They defeated the Koopa forces and sent them running. Unfortunately, those Koopas also have the real Princess Peach. So, it's like they're fighting for Princess Peach, but then she got swept up. That's another thing where I was sticking really closely to the game. Realistically, you'd want to give Peach something to do so that she's not just, the princess we have to save! I think how I would do that now is probably establish Bowser earlier on by having a few scenes with Peach trying to escape on her own. Maybe you could go ahead and have her escape and have her running through the castle as everything is crumbling. So rather than just her getting swept up by the Koopa troops, you could have her escape not knowing that Mario is coming for her, and so then they end up kind of losing each other that way. Just when they start to give chase, Mario and Luigi come running with Bowser on their tail. After a brief moment of talking, they decide that Mario will go after Peach while Luigi and the Toads try to hold off Bowser. Mario follows the escaping Koopas onto a cliff on the top of a mountain, where a bunch of airships and hot air balloons are docked. Mario fights off the last big Koopas and works his way to Peach. They have a brief moment of peace and thanks, and apologies, before the big bad Bowser crashes onto the ledge. The Koopas had been loading all of their gold, power-ups, and POWs onto the ships before Mario stopped them, because they were bailing out, so they were loading all their drugs and black market stuff onto the ships so that they could take off. But then, Bowser comes crashing through the mountainside and lands on this dock, essentially, the air dock. So Mario starts to throw POW after POW. Some POWs went too high and knocked rocks off the mountain onto Bowser. Some hit the ground, causing the cliff ledge to start crumbling away. Mario and Peach work their way onto a hot air balloon, still throwing POWs at Bowser. Bowser starts to shrink now that he's losing the drugs. I don't know how exactly you'd portray that. In my adult brain, I'm thinking that when Bowser starts to get beat up, he starts to bleed, and then whatever drugs were in his system starts to bleed out. Again, that has to do with more of what's going on, but I don't know if that type of thing would actually be able to be shown in a kid's show. I mean, I don't have any problem with it. The Hollywood rules tend to be, if it's not red, it's not blood. So, I don't know, at this point, you could just say his blood is green or purple or whatever color you want to associate with Koopa blood. It's blood. Mario throws a POW at a pile of POWs, and they all go POW, and that makes the ledge completely fall off in a rock slide avalanche, so that Bowser has to jump off of the crumbling mountainside onto one of the airships. So now you have a giant Bowser riding an airship towards Mario and Peach's hot air balloon. Mario throws his last POW at the mast of the airship, because the airships were basically going to be like helicopter ships. You have the mast going up, and instead of a sail, there's like a giant helicopter blade. Mario throws a POW at the mast, And so the helicopter blade falls over, hits Bowser, hits the ship, tears the whole thing in half, and then Bowser and the whole wreckage falls to the ground in a beautiful explosion. Mario and Peach float off into the distance, and they live happily ever after. So that's the first movie. Relatively normal, just extrapolating some ideas from the game.
Oh, yeah!